Hi everyone, it's Stephanie again, and you are tuned in to the review of Married at First Sight, Season 6, Episode 6. So, this is the episode where they are moving in together, which is a big deal in any relationship. However, even a bigger deal with them because it's only been 14 days, which was, I don't know why that's shocking to me. I know we know the timeline of the experiment, but I think because we've watched it in doses and we've seen so many things happen, that when day 14 flashed, on the screen, I was like, God, it's only been 2 weeks, which is not that much time. So it's just interesting to kind of see our experience, and I know a lot of people are experiencing the same thing, kind of like, why aren't things moving faster, and why is so-and-so still being this way? Well, it's still only day 14, so it kind of like puts things in perspective as far as what they're doing and how quickly they're actually moving along. So that was definitely eye-opening and a reminder for me to be a little more patient. So this week they moved in together. They showed the process of each couple going to each place to figure out if they liked it or not. I think each couple did a really good job. They all sat there and talked about, what their budget was, how much money they made, and that is a scary topic. I mean, a lot of people can't even do that with the people that they've known for a very long time. Finances is not easy to talk about. It's one of those things that we are conditioned to say, well, that's inappropriate to discuss, for the majority of our lives. So when you get into a space where you do need to discuss that, even though you know that, it does feel weird. It's probably as naked as you can be, People are often hiding their finances for one reason or another. So I guess really because of judgment. I think we all judge ourselves in some capacity. So I think, kind of just being able to know each other for 14 days and say, hey, this is how much I make, this is how much I make, and this is where I'm comfortable, this is what I'm paying now. I would not like to go over that, or I'm okay with doing this. I think each couple did a really good job. There were no issues. They all agreed. They all seem to be fiscally responsible, somewhat, based on what I'm seeing. So, gold star for them, because that sometimes can be a very uncomfortable conversation. So they all did really well with that. They were all showed the different apartments that they were going to be getting into, the pros and cons, and kind of regular life stuff. If you go and you're seeking a place with your spouse or significant other, you talk about those little things and, make kind of adjustments for each other. And, some things may be important to one person and the other person doesn't really care for it. Case in point, Molly in the parking, even though that seemed to be like a recurring theme for most people. Jonathon said that he doesn't really care. It doesn't matter for him. But he made sure that was a priority for her, which is very reflective of, a traditional relationship. Some people care about certain things, other person doesn't, but you know what? If they really care about it, then that's something that I care about as well. So that was good to see. So let's just jump in with the couples. I'm going to start with Shawniece and Jephte, which for the first time I will start with them. You guys, I'm losing a little bit of hope, and I know based on the comments, a lot of people have already lost hope. A lot of people, don't think he's attracted to her, don't think he likes her at all, really don't understand why he's part of this experiment. I have been, dancing around that idea, but I've been really looking to see, why it is that things are the way that they are. But what started happening last night was something that I've been mentioning for a while in terms of Shawniece hitting a point where there may be no return. Now, it's still early. It's only episode 6. But, for women, the need to be desired, especially like if by nobody else than your spouse, is like number one, okay? The need to be desired is extremely important. And if you are feeling like you are not desired by the one person that you want, that trickles down to everything. And yesterday it was really hard to watch. Like, I really felt sad for her because I don't think she really deserves it. She's really giving her all, despite what people may think about her. I read in the comments, some people like her, some people think she needs to tone it down, some people think she's too much. Be that as it may, she's really giving 100%. And it's not fair that she is with someone who is, I wouldn't even say 10%. I really wouldn't. I mean, he's going through the motions, as we see. You know, he did a good job, you know, picking out the place with her. But stuff like, you know, sleeping in separate beds, still, you know, stuff like lack of physical touch, you know, okay, so you don't want to have sex, or you don't want to maybe take it to a certain space yet, but physical touch, you know, hugging, hand holding, you know, kisses, massages, anything would be reflective of his attraction to her. And he's not reflecting any of that, and that is like weighing on her heavily. I think beyond, you know, his stranger danger comments and not letting her in, the fact that he's not even trying to be somewhat intimate with her and on a superficial level is really hurtful, and she is kind of like on her way to a breakdown, I feel. And it's really not fair to her. You know, I was kind of hopeful that he would turn a corner. But I'm not seeing that, and his words are not matching. So I was kind of holding on to, you know, every now and then he says, oh, I can see something brewing, I can see something building, but his words are not matching his actions at all. At this point, you know, to hold hands is not a big deal. Like, you're not doing anything. And I'm not a man, but based on what I know about men, whether you know, we're holding on to this, or he keeps holding on to this, I want to be a gentleman type of thing. I have met many a gentleman, and there are many a gentleman out there, but put in this position, in this space with somebody that they're attracted to, you know, where's the gentleman? Like, men are physical creatures, okay? So he might hold off for, you know, a little while, but there would still be something that would be indicative of being attractive. So this whole, a lot of people are saying, oh, he's a gentleman, he was raised right. That's not it. That is not it. You know, at this point, I don't really believe that he wants her. I would even like to see a friendship building, but there's such a lack of like being an adult in him in certain respects. You know, yes, he works and he has his own place, all these things, but there's such a lack of like being an adult in the way that he communicates that it's even hard to see a friendship build. So, you know, I don't know where they're gonna go. You know, they did well with the house, and they, you know, got along with figuring things out and talking about finances. But you know, it's hard to see where it's gonna go. When she goes to his place for the first time, he says, you know, well, I'm just gonna kind of let her see. I'm starting to get more comfortable. I'm just gonna let her see, you know, where I'm living, and I'm not gonna fix it because she's my wife now. And you know, and I was like, wow, what an opportunity to really be yourself. And I wish that he would really use the same line of thinking with her in other ways. You know, so in his mind, he's like, okay, well, you know, she's my wife, so no need to hide, no need to, you know, pretend. So here, walk into my sloppy ass room. And I'm like, wow, so you're willing to let her in that way, but you won't even, you know, give her the time of day with anything else. Like, I wish he would have that same, you know, get over myself type of, you know, attitude and let her in the other space, because, you know, there is potential if he wants it. At this point, it's like, if he wants it, you know, we have nothing to go off of. I hope to see something different, but, you know, if I'm going based off of what I'm seeing now, it's not looking good. I'm not going to put the nail in the coffin because I'm just a hopeful person like that, but it's not looking good. So, time will tell. So that's Jephte and Shawniece. Molly and Jonathon, once again, they did really well with the house. It was interesting to see how Molly kind of really responded to Jonathon being a little more serious and getting into his space. And I was actually talking to my husband before the episode started, and I said, you know, what she saw on the honeymoon was him just being goofy and happy to be married. You know, this is day 6, day 7, you know. He's not at work. You know, how many of us go on vacation and are a different version of ourselves? You know, you're carefree and you're starting this new life with someone, and you get along well, so you're hopeful and you're giddy, and you know, yeah, so what? He was, you know, somewhat childlike. But she got to see the different side of him. And I said that. I was like, when he gets home, she's going to see a different side of him, you know, a side of him that is more responsible, that has to be more responsible. If we had to judge ourselves on our vacation version of ourselves, yikes, you know, because we can kind of get a little loose on vacay. You know, we all can. So I'm glad she's able to see both. And, you know, I just hope in the future she's able to just like cut him some slack because, or communicate what she needs. Because she seems a little tightly wound with how things should be and how things need to be. And I don't know where she's getting that from. You know, I said last week that I would have asked her, you know, what is your idea of a husband? Because it's important to really discuss those roles and what we want out of those roles, what we expect. But also who is she comparing him to? You know, so is it, you know, her father? Was her father like the idea of what she thought a husband should be based on the outside perspective of her parents' marriage? That's huge. You know, sometimes we compare our spouses or compare, you know, people we're dating to our parents. If it's a good, you know, if it's a good mirror, and oh, well, they're not doing this. You know, your dad was not like that when he first married your mom. You don't know that, but it took your dad, you know, if you're 30 or 35, it took your dad. You're looking at 35-year-old married dad. You're not looking at 14-day-old married dad. So sometimes we really need, and similar to the women, if men are comparing their spouse to how their mom is, well, that's not fair. Your mother was not always that way. She grew into being that type of spouse, and you've seen her in a way outside. You know, we're seeing outside perspectives, even of our parents. You don't really know what's happening between the two of them. You just see. So I would be thinking, Molly, like, what are you comparing? She may not realize she's doing it, but she is. What are you comparing, or who are you comparing John to? And I feel like, if I just threw out a guess, I feel like it has something to do with her father. You know, and unfortunately he passed away, and I think there's just some hero complex of who he was in that space and her wanting that in a different way and so on and so forth. I'm guessing, you guys, but that's kind of the conversation that I want to have with her, just to see if that's what's happening and to kind of stop it from translating into her new marriage, because John isn't anybody but John. So, you know, when he's getting on your nerves or doing something annoying, knock it off, and that's it. Learn to communicate that. And on the flip side, he can do that as well, because we all, you know, do something that is less than desirable. Some of it is more overt, but, you know, we all do it. So I think that's it with the two of them. I think they did pretty well. I think it was great that he gave away the cat. Not that he had to, but I think the fact that he did that, loving it so much and just kind of giving it to his friends just to see the experience, that was huge. You know, most people are not going to give away their animals. But he did that putting her in mind, and that was like a very big deal for me to see that type of selflessness to make room for her in his life and in his space, or in their space, really. So that was great. Next couple, let's see, Ryan and Jaclyn. So once again, they did well with the house hunting. The big thing that happened with Ryan and Jaclyn last night was the discussion of the trauma. So like I knew, like a lot of you all knew, that trauma is going to come back up. Why? Because it's a major trauma, and it is something that's very recent. You know, if we think about, I kind of said, okay, think about a year and a half in terms of a baby. When we look at a year and a half year old, he's little, he's a tiny baby. You know, my nephew is a year and a half. So I look at him and I'm like, oh, he's so little. You know, think about the trauma being that little, if you want to kind of think about, you know, the time frame and what that might look like. So as she's going through the boxes, because, you know, this happened a year and a half ago, she was supposed to move with him. It didn't work out. Unfortunately, he passed away, and she never really dealt with any of that stuff in the boxes and stuff like that. And now she has moved on, and she has, you know, met someone, married someone, and now they're getting ready to move in together, and she's going through these boxes, and all of this stuff is coming up. That in itself, going through boxes of someone who passed away, is difficult enough. But going through boxes of someone who passed away, while you're kind of building your life with someone new so rapidly, is probably very overwhelming. And we saw that because, you know, she was crying and she was having kind of like a breakdown, understandably so. Ryan came while she was doing that, and I think he handled it well in the moment. He said that he was there to support her. and he kind of made her feel okay about it. Where I get frustrated with Ryan is sometimes he's like up here and sometimes he's down here. And it gave me a throwback to when she said, you know, she kind of wants him to really mean what he says and be who he is. And she wants to be able to trust that. Because he later on at dinner, or I think it was dinner, but it was the first night at the house, he tells her that he's kind of worried that she is not going to be able to move forward and build a new life with him because she's still stuck on this person. What frustrated me about that was, you know, why make her feel that you understand and you're supportive in the moment and then kind of like sideswipe her later on saying that you have concerns. The concerns aren't the issue because it's normal to have those concerns. It's kind of not judging her and giving her space to have that. She can very well move on, and she's going to move on. I mean, I think she's moved on in some ways, but she's still going to have those latent feelings, especially since the trauma is somewhat new, and he has to give her room for that. If he does not give her room for that, she is not going to share that part of herself with him. That's going to cause a wedge within their relationship, and it's going to trickle down into other things because now I'm not comfortable. I don't know if you say what you mean, you know. I even question his authenticity because sometimes he can be, oh, you know, the perfect guy, which doesn't exist, but he can kind of show up so happy-go-lucky all the time, all about it, and then he can say really jerky things or, you know, things that are kind of like off-putting, you know, as he did with the guys. And when he was in the market, I read some of your comments that he was kind of being somewhat of a jerk in the market with the workers, and you know, it was just like not fun to watch. And so this is one of those scenes for me. If you're going to support her. Don't sideswipe her later because, you know, there's a lot happening and you have to give her room to lay that to rest while she builds with you. And it can happen. It happens all the time. But what isn't healthy is for him to get in competition with the deceased guy. You won't win that. You have to give her room to grieve that person, that life. You know, she even said, you know, when I look at these boxes, I was a different person. I lived in a different place. I wore different clothes. She's rebuilding who she is. Support her in that and be a part of that rebuild versus, you know, looking around and comparing yourself for somebody, you will not win that. He's no longer there. She has to grieve that, and it's okay. You know, you're not a comparison. It has nothing to do with the relationship with you and that person. And when he gets to understand that, it'll be better. But I would just hate to see him really like overanalyze and, you know, compare himself to, you know, Nick, I believe his name was, and get in the way of growing his relationship, you know. And she's aware of it. She says, I know, you know, I want to move forward. I want to do these things, etc. But he has to give her room to be able to do that and build together. Other than that, though, I think everything else was pretty good. You know, it was an interesting episode. You know, it was pretty calm across the board, but it was good to just see them kind of tackle real life stuff. You know, I think the first few weeks or first month of watching this show, we're so wrapped up in the excitement of, you know, them getting matched and getting paired and doing the wedding and the honeymoon is several episodes. And so now it's like, it's back, you know, it's back to business. I remember when I came back from my honeymoon, I like looked around, and the first night that we came back from the honeymoon, you know, the bed wasn't fixed. And I was like, God, there's nobody here to fix our bed. Because every time we left the room, when we came back, the bed was made up, you know. So like, you're now back to reality, like, oh God, you know, like this is now like real. So it was good to kind of just see them in that real space and operate as such. So, you know, we'll see for next week. Looking forward to kind of all the things that is going to happen. And I feel like the season's going to pick up a little bit with different interactions and different things that they have to face. So as always, if you like the review, please subscribe and comment. I respond to like almost every single one, so I love the dialogue. And if you have any questions, once again, relationships or anything else, feel free to email or put the questions in the comments, and I will do a video responding to those. All right, have a great week.